So you can tell that he is an LA sports fan by some of the signage behind him, except he's missing my favorite team. Will Wright, where is the Clippers sign? I see Lakers, Kings, Dodgers. You're missing the number one team right now. And
Somehow that got misplaced in the office movement or something like that.
Will Wright is with us. He is director of production content at Gravity Media, which is a hot spot for some of the great productions in relation to sporting events, entertainment, whatever you need. And they work with so many different networks across the country and the world to put on events that we have all seen on television. So if you consider yourself an American TV sports fan, and you watch stuff on television, you've definitely watched something that Will has been a part of. He is on Twitter at Willie Video, and we are going to look at his career, see what makes him inspirational, learn about what his life is like behind the scenes from a professional and personal standpoint. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing this on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, a national anchor at Fox Sports Radio and tennis, volleyball broadcaster, basketball as well. So, and I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. Well, so I wanted to start here. When you look at your wife and you see her resilience and what she's gone through in the last year and a half with her business, how does that strength from her rub off on you and your work?
I mean, in all honesty, and thank you. I mean, it is really, it kind of honestly brings tears to my eyes to think about that. It all makes it seem like with what we do with sports broadcasting is pretty easy. To see, because of the pandemic, all that she's worked for so long, and owning a bar and one of the oldest pubs in all of Los Angeles, to just be boarded up for so long because of the pandemic, and because of where it's located, not having some of the luxuries of being able to do outdoor dining, at a large scale and things like that. The last year and a half or however long it's been now for all industries has been affected. And this has been something that's affected everybody, all across the world in all different types of industries. And it's been really interesting to see how, I thought it was very important, and I was glad to be a part of it for sports broadcasting, to be a part of the return of sports and to be bringing live sports back on television. I think back to some of those early days of, just not having sports on TV. And I did think that it was such a important piece to be able to do that. And yes, we went through a lot, figuring out new workflows, testing people, masks, masks in the trucks, everything like that. But then, I look at my wife and, everything that she's gone through with the pub and with everything. And I'm inspired every day, and a tough day for me is nothing compared to what my amazing wife goes through. And really just seeing the community that she's built up around Ireland's 32 for so many years. And it's such an important part of the Irish community here in Los Angeles as well, and what she's such a big part of as well. And it just gives me extra motivation. And it's also nice to know that when I'm producing a show, or Gravity Media is producing a show, that there's at least one TV turned on.
So she has a community that she has been supporting and been such a fulcrum for. You have a community that you work in as well, that certainly when I watch the broadcast that you guys do, there's so much chemistry there. And I'm thinking about how you've been, Will, better at your job, considering the adversity that has been thrown your way with everything happening, as we mentioned, the last year and a half. How has it expanded your palate and forced you to grow in ways in which perhaps you didn't think were possible, but it made you ultimately better at your job?
I mean, I think that what the pandemic really did is created a lot of new workflows and a lot of things that were kind of in the hopper technology wise. And really that's the reason why I decided to join Gravity Media, was because Gravity Media is known worldwide, doing very, very technically advanced events. It has amazing engineers and technology groups are our engineers are some of the best in the industry. And what I saw, I saw as the opportunity in building up the production staff and joining that together with technology and engineering that Gravity is known for. I saw that as a big opportunity. And I think that, a lot of these types of technologies were being used, but now the pandemic just accelerated all of that, and the workflows from that. And I also think that it also showed us that in some ways it kind of makes things a little bit better, especially in some of the packaged sports world that we work a lot in, and in some of the lower budget productions. By utilizing some of the remote workflows and being able to have people do things from home, for someone like yourself, being able to call games from your living room, maybe you could do 3 or 4 games in a week versus the travel, restraints, and being able to only do maybe 2 games in a week. So I think that's been really interesting, and it also kind of makes it better in some ways. Yes, nothing will replace being outside of a stadium or being there courtside and doing that. But it also, I think I've been cautiously optimistic about being able to, with the advancements that this is also giving us as well.
Will Wright is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. From workflow to confidence flowing through you, when you consider, and pride flowing through you, when you consider, is it your brother Andrew in the Marines and today's Veterans Day? So in what ways do you look up to him?
Well, I mean, both of my brothers, in all honesty. I'm very lucky to be the oldest of 3. My parents, raised us as a, here in Los Angeles. We're all big LA sports fans. I've gone to numerous Dodgers, Kings, Lakers games, all throughout our upbringing. But both of my brothers, both Andrew and Ronald, both being in the military. Andrew was in the Marines for 4 years, stationed at Camp Pendleton in San Diego, and then in Okinawa for 2 years. And now, he was obviously a veteran, and very, very proud of him. But now he's on as a sheriff's deputy as well, working in the LA County jails, and incredibly proud. My youngest brother Ronald he was in the Army for 4 years, just got out 2 weeks before my wedding. So that was great, and lucky to have him back for the wedding. And he's kind of navigating his career right now through a few different things, but both of them I'm incredibly proud. One of the things I think that we do great, and as sports in general, is always honoring our service members, especially on days like today with Veterans Day, 4th of July, the national anthems, things like that. And so many of the military are serving, at some of these large scale events as security, and have some type of presence there. And I take a great amount of pride in knowing that both of my brothers were veterans, and obviously I have a lot of respect for all veterans everywhere. And obviously I definitely appreciate the two of them making me seem like the underachiever of the family, and not being a veteran myself, but obviously someone that has a great respect for both of them.
You've got great respect for them. They've got great respect for you. You brought up your wedding, and knowing how many hours, and I don't probably think there's a number for how many hours you've logged in a production truck. But if you were leading a production on your wedding day, what would you want to highlight?
Well, I mean, I do think there was a bit of a production with our wedding. Obviously, having a wedding and coordinating it all throughout a pandemic was not the easiest thing in the world. And unfortunately, many friends and family weren't able to attend. So we did put on a bit of a production in terms of a live stream and things like that. And, it's actually going to be 1 year ago this Sunday that I proposed to my wife. That was a bit of a production in itself. I actually I had finished producing a show the night before. I took the first flight back from Miami picked her up, and then drove to the beach where I proposed to her on. And as everybody was saying after when I showed the photos and video of me proposing, it was they said definitely something that only a producer could do. And then also just leading up to our wedding, and I think specifically for what, but we got married within 6 months. As it was actually 6 months to the day from the day I proposed. And I think typically for people to think to get married in 6 months would be a little bit of a task in itself. And I think for both what me and my wife do, with me being able to coordinate and put together, large scale events in a short period of time, especially, if you think back to the pandemic, putting together full broadcasts within, 24, 48 hours notice, I thought, oh, we got 6 months to do it, to put on a wedding. This will be great. And obviously we pulled from a lot of our friends in both of our industries, in terms of my wife having a bar. Obviously, an open bar was an easy thing to come by for all of our friends and family there. And then obviously with my own connections, and we also had some other great vendors that helped us great. But it was a great day. And then in addition to the live stream, for the family back in Ireland, the family that couldn't travel here because of the pandemic, and it was a great day.
How would you compare the nerves you felt when proposing to the nerves you get right before you go on the air?
I mean, it's something I love, honestly. I love the nerves. And I kind of feel like, when you lose that, that's something, it's something I don't want to ever lose. And I love that. But I would compare it. I'll say this. I was pretty confident in knowing what my wife was going to say. I don't always know. And sometimes depending on what goes on in the setup of a show, you don't always know how things are going to turn out when you roll the open and get on the air.
So it ended up working out pretty well for you. And as I saw on Instagram, I love the play on words that you guys both swept Wright, and of course WRIGHT, which is your last name. Will Wright is with us, director of production content at Gravity Media. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. Of course, Will, before you were at Rush and previously with Golden Boy, and so you've done so many different things. But I want to go back, way back, and I want to rewind to your days working a production for a church, and how that spawned your love affair for what you do now.
Yeah, I've obviously been involved with my church and many other churches in the Los Angeles area in multiple ways. I'm still involved with my church, Granada Hills Community Church, here in Granada Hills, which I grew up in. I play the drums, help out with sound. That was another thing that we had to figure out in the middle of the pandemic was, not being able to meet, and using some of my expertise with live streaming and video production to be able to stream the services to our church family on our Facebook page and on our website and different things like that. But yeah, no, I really I was freelance before I kind of did this job as part when I was also freelance, but I was with Shepherd of the Hills Church, and I was one of the video editors and producers and a director for their broadcast ministry. I was a editor, a producer, a director for Shepherd of the Hills broadcast ministry, and also other videos there. And it was a great, I still have friends today that I talk to from that. It was obviously a very different world than maybe less colorful of language being used in the truck for those productions, if I could say that. But it was something that I still try to help out with today.
How was your brain wired for this business?
I mean, it kind of drives my wife crazy on the amount of things that I have to look at, and at once. We just got a new house, and we just got a new house up in the Porter Ranch area, and we were laying out we're doing some renovations on it, and for my new office, I was like, okay, so I'm going to put like 4 TVs up in this wall. And she's like, why do you need 4 TVs? I'm like, well, we might have 4 or 5 games on in one night. So, I think we need that. And I do feel like I have the capability of managing multiple things at a time. Just for example, this weekend we have, over 20 events going on, between, different Pac-12 campuses and the start of college football, or the start of college basketball season. College football starts wrapping up, as we get it closer into bowl season and things like that. This is always like kind of the craziest time of the year for sports TV executives, where you have the emergence of the start of college basketball with tournaments and with different events happening all around, and with college football going down. But so having to stay on top of multiple events, and being able to also look at multiple screens, and being able to kind of obviously within a production truck, but also on the management side of things, and keeping an eye on the multiple events going on a single day or a single night.
Having those multiple events, it can create for things being hectic, because you have, like you said, the intersection of basketball and football and other sports happening at the same time. Also chaotic, like you alluded to earlier, is being in the production truck when a broadcast is going on. You never know if everything's going to go to plan, and usually it doesn't. And so you have to act on the fly, and you have to be on your game. How do you feel at peace when you're in a production truck, even when things at times you kind of have to roll with what's happening, and it might not be exactly what was planned in the broadcast?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I really kind of, I don't know if it's been a great thing, but I've had the luck. I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of unique places, and I would say a lot of tough shows. When I was at Golden Boy, we did a lot of shows in a lot of hard to get places. We did a lot of shows down in Mexico, and down in, I had the opportunity to do a lot of shows down in Cancun. Now, Cancun's a great place to go on vacation, go on your honeymoon, go do a bunch of different things. Not exactly the greatest place to go produce a television show from. Things like generators catching on fire, things like, a lot of things like that. But I also do feel like, because of some of those tough shows that I've gone through in the early part of my career, it's also helped me be able to teach. And as new producers and directors are starting off with us, being able to, the biggest thing is, and as one of my mentors taught me, is a ship's captain is to always make sure that the ship gets back to port. And I feel like sometimes that could be, as a producer, you're when things are going wrong, or as a director when things are going wrong, it's really your job to just get the show back onto track and get the boat back into port.
And oftentimes, knowing how analytical you are and your team behind the scenes, you see things that happen that the casual TV viewer is not going to notice, as far as how a broadcast is working. But the perfectionistic mindset, I feel like that is all over the place in your profession, and rightly so. Will Wright is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. So you set up for these productions, and what goes into how you unload a truck?
Well, it really, Gravity Media has some of the best trucks in the industry, I'd say. And that's always something that we try to do, is how can we be more efficient, and how can we be, better prepared in terms of that. But, every show is different, and that kind of causes its own issues. There's a lot of logistics and a lot of different moving pieces, from graphics machines going from one show to another that need to get there from overnight, and it's quite the effort. And luckily we have a great team here at Gravity Media, and our manager of remote operations, Rusty Cummins, who is a mastermind behind it all, and we could not do anything without him and the rest of his team of our great tech managers and ops producers that we have. That could also be said in terms of just managing throughout a whole weekend of with our production managers and our production teams, with our great producers, directors that do our games for us. We have great coordinating producers with Matt Sanduli and Neil Gallo, and our production managers with Madison Rubino and the rest of our coordinators and the team that we really put together. And going beyond that with all of our engineers, and our engineering team is led by Tyler Thomas and Alec Balco, who's our director of engineering. And they put together some amazing technology and a great engineering team to make sure that our trucks and with so many different moving parts is really a just such a clockwork operation, and can make things happen at a moment's notice.
Yeah, and with all those moving parts, how do you guys communicate in the best way to be as efficient, to be as productive, knowing that you could be all located in different parts of the world, different parts of the country, and trying to find the best way to everybody get on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely used a lot. I think that's something that has been, just in terms of how this interview is happening, right? Through Zoom. And, I will say that a lot of days I come home from the day and it's been like, man, I feel like all I did was talking to a tiny camera all day. As so much of that happens, through Teams calls or Zoom calls. We use Microsoft Teams here a lot at Gravity. And it's been great because we are a global organization, with operations, in the UK, which is where our headquarters are. And then our CEO and other team members are down in Australia. We have a large business in Australia, as well as, I started this morning off on a call from Doha,
Wow.
in Qatar. And, we're preparing for the 2022 World Cup, and our office is there, and our team there, and working on some of the proposals that are coming out and preparing for some of that going on right now. So it's also been able to connect our global company a lot better as well. But just on the day-to-day operation side of things as well, it's I say that I kind of schedule my flights around Teams meetings or around Zoom meetings, just because they can last, from 24 hours a day, it feels like sometimes. But it's been great, and I feel like we have a great process down, and even just using the tools of the cloud, we use SharePoint a lot, and Google Docs and Google Cloud and things like that. And so a lot of our schedules and a lot of our, budgeting processes and things like that can all happen like that.
Knowing what you just said, I want to leave you with this last question. Will Wright is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. We started out this conversation by highlighting your wife's resilience and the strength and inspiration you get from her. How does she tell you she's proud of you?
I'm kidding. You're gonna cut that one out. No, my wife really, she's my biggest supporter, and I could not do it without her. And I truly mean that. And even just this morning, I was, it started off at like 6 a.m. this morning on different calls and different things. And, then in the middle of one call, I get an email from a client, from a network that we need to help out next week. So trying to move some pieces around, and, with it being the busiest time of year for us, trying to figure out, okay, can we get a crew over there? Can we do this? Can we do that? So I was just kind of texting her as, we're kind of going through the morning. She just goes, hey, you're the best. You'll get this happen. You'll make this happen. And, just that little bit of just that one text message coming up on my phone just, makes me feel like I could run through a brick wall, and obviously taking it from, like we talked about earlier, just take from her to say that, and seeing everything that she goes through on a daily basis, and keeping her company up and running and going together. It's something that I take a great amount of inspiration from.
You two make a great team. Will, you are part of a great team with Gravity Media. And this has been so much fun highlighting your story. And everybody, make sure you follow Will on Twitter at Willie Video. I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. Will, thanks so much for doing this, man. I really appreciated it.
Thanks so much, Brian. That was great.